And would you look at that, our game has moved online. It's my fault. My availability has shifted slightly in the last few weeks, and the group, rather than kick me out for 2 months, has graciously decided to move the day to allow us to continue. But it does mean we've had to move online, which is why you can see Roll20 here. Personally, it's not quite as good playing D&D online versus in person. I do prefer to play in person when I can, but there are some benefits to this change because, as you can see, I was able to record the entire thing. And in this session, we have just arrived on level 21, the Terminus level, the Deep Mines. Call it what you want. In short, it's a level that's full of Duergar, and among them is the Iron Majesty, a steel dragon who has taken on the appearance of a character from Gorn's backstory. And so this level has been kind of on our radar for quite some time. It was mentioned back when we first arrived in Skullport and we were trying to work out what the Duergar were doing. They were digging, we learned, digging for Mithril. And it was also the level that the Mage killer himself, Olibash, told us was very important for Gorn. In fact, 2 of our former party members, Kronos and Haltom, have both ended up travelling down to this level and have, we've been led to believe, via magical CCTV since then and communion with our gods, they've been fighting to the death ever since, engaged in some sort of epic battle, which made this level one of the ones that we've been really looking forward to arriving on. And it's one of the reasons why I made the decision to retire my character Shield to allow Gorn to return to the setting, because although technically Gorn has lost a lot of his memories and some of his backstory is kind of hazy, it's kind of nice to have that continuity when we're going into a level which has been hyped up as much as this one. And I have to say, the level didn't disappoint. You know, we got some really good role-playing moments out of it, and it ended up with not just 1 but 2 of the party members, in fact 3, gave them a nice little send-off. But I'll come on to all of that in a minute, because as you can see right now, we're just kind of getting used to the idea of using Roll20 here. So the first thing I do is I see these minecarts here, and I don't know, in my head I was probably picturing it playing out like a level in Donkey Kong Country, because I encourage everyone to hop onto them and then you go, whee! And yeah, that was pretty short, wasn't it? But yeah, short is a pretty good summation actually of this floor, because the time was that it would probably take us a couple of sessions to get through this place, just to get our bearings, just to figure out what's going on. Every time we arrived on a new floor, it tended to take about 3 or 4 sessions for us to get through them. But now we're at such a high level as a party, it's very much a case of us just needing to walk up to the big bad on the level and kill him. There are a lot of fights in between, as you can see, but they're mostly just here to annoy us and potentially drain our resources rather than provide an actual challenge. Soon after that, we ended up inside this foundry. Faustus decided to use Mask of Many Faces and his high charisma to pretend to be a kind of health and safety inspector to try and get an audience with the Duergar's leader. So he was going around just asking, hey, do you have a license for this trapped fire elemental? Where does this smoke go? There's a shocking lack of ventilation in this place, considering we're like 2 miles underground at this point, and so on and so on. What can I say? He plays that character very well. Unfortunately, the Duergar don't really buy what we're selling, and so we're forced to kill them all. Luckily, Faustus also has Speak with Dead, and he can cast it at will, and it turns out that most NPCs at this point in the game seem far more willing to talk with us once they're dead than they do when they're alive. So from them, we do find out where the guy in charge is, and we start to learn a little bit more about the main issue on this floor, what's going on, namely that the Steel Dragon I previously mentioned and the Duergar, they used to be in charge down here, but now this Planetar has appeared. He was summoned to help deal with some issue, but has become corrupted in this place and is now obsessed with judging everyone. And of course, no one is able to meet his high standards of judging, and so everyone is being punished and condemned in some way, but the Duergar don't like him, really. So despite the fact that we have just murdered all of these Duergar down here, apparently their leader has absolutely no problem meeting with us, and in fact seems pretty chill to have us here. And their leader, it turns out, is a character from my backstory. He's this con man who, way back in the day, he managed to get Gorn to sign up to his kind of get-rich-quick mining company scheme, a scheme which ended up costing Gorn everything, in short. So, of course, he's now forgotten all of this. He died since then, so Gorn doesn't really remember much of what he used to get up to. But it turns out that this NPC being a kind of con man. I mean, he has no recollection of Gorn either. So it was a bit of a strange interaction, because the players at the table, we all kind of knew what was going on, but the characters, of course, had absolutely no clue. I mean, Gorn was kind of sure that he had seen the man before, and so he was testing him. He's like, have you been to Waterdeep? And so on and so on. And somehow, I'm not even sure how this happened, but the conversation ended up with Gorn convincing himself that he must have seen this man on the Waterdavian equivalent of the Great British Bake Off. Apparently he's kind of a keen chef of some sort, and he's trying to sell us his books. But he says if we want to help, he's going to be very grateful, and we should go and talk to his wife, Skella. Now, Skella is another matter entirely, because she does remember Gorn, and in fact she's kind of taken aback when he first appears. Her first words to us are, "Is my husband still alive?" But she relaxes once it's very clear that Gorn has no real recollection of who she is and that he's undead. Gorn, it should be mentioned, does try communing with his god directly to kind of find out the best course of action down here, and Kalimvor reveals to him that the Planetar on this level is abhorrent to him and must be destroyed. So despite Gorn's misgivings at this point that something here doesn't add up, and he's sure he knows these people somehow, but despite these misgivings, he and the party agree to help for now. They say, the enemy of the enemy being my friend and all of that stuff. So we did have some nice role-playing moments here, actually. Gorn and Ember in particular discussing between themselves whether they think that Skella is on the level or not. I mean, she's a metallic dragon, says Auric, and that means she should be one of the good ones, quote unquote. And what she's saying to us does check out. Ember points out, she's the one that tells us all about who the Planetar is and how he got here, and of course even Gorn's god is saying that the Planetar needs to be destroyed, but Gorn does point out that her first words to us were, "Is my husband still alive?" Why would she say that to me unless she expected me to try and kill her? Well, anyway, we decide to park that quandary for now, and we take on the Planetar directly, which we do. So the Planetar starts by kind of calling one of us forwards to be judged. Of course, that person ends up being Faustus, who is judged as to be lacking, and the Planetar immediately attacks us. So we all fight back, and unfortunately Ember once again uses her turn to knock out one of the party members while fighting recklessly. That's kind of her go-to move. This time it's Gorn who ends up fainting thanks to a misplaced AoE spell, but he is revived and he is able to recover in time to deal the killing blow. He kind of stands up and he says to the Planetar, "You dare to judge us? You who are called to this place to protect us? No, for I say it is you who have been judged by a higher power than you will ever be. Kalimvor judges you, and you will face his wrath." And that is my way of casting Channel Divinity, Path to the Grave. He is now vulnerable to all damage, and one turn later, he is dead. There is much rejoicing, but not nearly as much as when we then investigate this pit in the room and we find our former party member Kronos inside, fighting for his life. Gorn, of course, being the only person in the party who recognizes Kronos, he just leaps straight down, fails his dex save, and he takes a ton of fall damage, and the rest of the party more cautiously kind of help out from the sidelines. But clumsy though the rescue may be, a rescue it indeed does end up being. Kronos is saved, the spirit of Halton, who was protecting him in death, was released, and Kronos was then rescued from the pit, ready to give the party a thankful goodbye. Obviously, we wanted to know what Kronos had been up to all this time, and although his memories were kind of hazy after weeks of non-stop fighting, he was able to tell us that he'd basically been sold into slavery by the Metallic Majesty. She had been kind of using him like a pet almost to fight her battles for her, and once the Planetar appeared, he'd basically been given as a gift to the Planetar to try and kind of appease him and spare her from his judgment. So we decided to go back and have another word with the Metallic Majesty, if for no other reason than to tell her that the job had been completed and to claim passage to the next level. But first, we had a short rest, and during this time, each of us was visited in turn by a vision of Halaster Blackcloak, the Mad Mage himself, who spoke with us all directly. And to each of us, he offered us a reward if we agreed to help him. Auric, for example, was offered to be turned back into a Dragonborn, or actually, screw that, maybe he could actually be an actual, real dragon. I've just used the word actual several times there, I'm sorry about that. Ember was offered Lantix, Faustus was offered his wife, and Gorn was offered to become Halaster's right-hand man and new apprentice. And all we needed to do in exchange, we were told, was to kill Hallister's existing apprentices. They've served their purpose, they're not needed anymore. Now, this was actually something we were planning on doing anyway. Of course, Hallister's apprentices are like liches and things, and that's abhorrent to my god. But considering that only one of us in the party could ever become Hallister's apprentice, so that means that he would never be able to make good on his offer to all four of us. And also consider that as a wizard, Hallister has no ability to bring people back from the dead like he was offering to Lantix. And yeah, basically the group consensus was that he's just trying to get in our heads, and he's just trying to divide us amongst ourselves, which we figured must mean he's kind of worried about us, or if not us, perhaps worried about his apprentices. Could they actually be potential allies in taking him down? Of the four of us, only Ember seemed to kind of waver on the offer a little bit. Hallister is very powerful, she pointed out, and maybe he could bring Lantix back to her. But in the end, we managed to convince her that the party has her back. We've got two people in the party who have actually been beyond death and back again. We understand death better than Hallister does, and if anyone's going to bring back Lantix, it's us. And Ember agrees, albeit with some mixed emotions. Mixed emotions was very much the theme du jour of this session as we returned to the Metallic Majesty for our follow-up conversation, which was, it has to be said, a lot more terse than the previous one. On the one hand, she was happy that the Planetar was dead, and she was happy that the Duergar were back in control down here, but equally she seemed annoyed that her pet/slave, Kronos, had been freed. At which point, Gorn started kind of putting a few things together in his head. Even though he didn't exactly remember it, there were enough kind of loose threads and puzzle pieces here that he was able to suss a few things out. For example, the fact here that Skella is really a dragon, not a dwarf, yet she has the Duergar down here doing her bidding, the fact that Kronos was captured and made a slave, and the things that Gorn remembers from his past where he too used to dig for her, and he was digging at the detriment of his friends and his family, whom he completely ignored for months at a time. And I rolled very high on a kind of self-imposed history check, and so I allowed myself to remember a few more details. For example, the Rod of Rulership that we had rescued from Slither Swamp on the 8th floor of the dungeon. This was the rod that had been used to control me all those years ago. So I took the rod out. I looked at Skella. "This used to be yours, didn't it?" I said. I looked at Kronos. I looked back at the rod, and then I spoke honestly to her, and I told her that I feel like in a former life, this conversation might have gone very differently. But I was a new man now, I'm reborn, and the pain that she inflicted on me was a literal lifetime ago. I'm a different person now, I'm a wiser person now. I know that the past cannot be changed, the dead can be revived, but they shouldn't be, and killing more people will do nothing to help them anyway. I told her, we've helped you today by killing the Planetar, and in return we have freed our friend from bondage. If you show us the way to the next floor, we can say that our grievances are over. And with that, Skella, annoyed, agrees to let bygones be bygones, and she shows us the way further down inside the dungeon. At which point, I thank her, and before closing the door, I pull out the brass horn of Valhalla that we found earlier, that summons loads of barbarians when it's blown, and knowing that I'm never going to use this at any other point in the campaign, I blow it, summon loads of barbarians, and then slam the door. No, it's not going to kill her, but it's the D&D equivalent of showing the middle finger, I guess. As we find the stairs to the next floor, we head down and we level up to level 17, meaning we now have level 9 spells, and Gorn in particular gets True Resurrection. And hey, since this session has all been about reunions, I decide to use that spell slot straight away to bring back Lantix from the grave and prove to Ember that she doesn't need Hallister and his lies, because she has the party and we've got her back. Ember, of course, is extremely grateful to have Lantix back, and after a brief reunion, both he and Kronos leave the party stage right to head back upstairs and out of the dungeon. And just for the sake of things, we say that Auric also goes with them to show them the way because, well, the player that plays his character wasn't going to be here the next week. The next session we head down to level 22 to Shadow Dusk Hold, which is a bit of a weird floor. It's like this giant mansion split over several levels. The mansion itself is very beautiful, or at least it used to be beautiful, maybe a century ago. Now it's fallen into disrepair. It's dusty, moth-eaten, tarnished, you name it. There are a lot of Nothics wandering around down here, lots of statues and frescoes made out to the Shadow Dusk family, which is this Waterhavian family who went missing many years ago, presumably killed in a fire. Now, Gorn remembers from his time as a gravekeeper that only 4 of the family were never found, but they were presumed dead. But now here we are, 2 miles underground, and there's statues and frescoes in this strange underground mansion that seem to be made out to these people. The Nothics, for the most part, they seem almost frightened of us, and when Faustus casts Comprehend Languages in order to understand them, most seem to be chattering among themselves that the mistress won't be happy that they're here, and something about a tablet. We then found ourselves in a room with a giant fresco on the wall depicting weird tentacles coming out of a man holding a tablet. No time to contemplate that though, because we have a bunch of death slards in the room first. Now, I gotta say, this was an incredibly difficult fight and almost ended in a TPK. Mostly, however, this was self-inflicted. Gorn had previously been killed, or almost killed, by a slard while in Dwurmakor, and so I roleplayed it that he was terrified of these slard, and after being attacked by a couple of them in one turn, I lost over 90 HP in a single turn. I also was concentrating on a spell, lost that concentration, and so I said, you know what, I'm so scared of this that on my next turn I cast Etherealness, slipping away onto the ethereal plane. My idea was I would then spend one turn kind of healing myself back up, and then I would get out of combat range before re-emerging in the real world to then wreak havoc. Unfortunately, I didn't read the spell correctly, it seems, because as written, there's no way to voluntarily step back onto the material plane once the spell has been cast. That means you have to then spend 8 hours in the ethereal plane, the full duration of the spell, and the only way to shorten this is to cast the spell again. And this is a level 7 spell that we're talking about here. So after a lot of laughter from the party, I reluctantly cast the spell again, which means I basically wasted 2 turns and 2 really high level spell slots, and I wasn't able to heal myself after all. But it is a good thing I came back, because in the meantime, Ember came so close to dying, it's not even funny. She was only saved at the last minute thanks to a clutch use of her familiar dying in her place, and then her ability that allows her to place fires around and heal back from them. It's pretty cool, actually. Faustus, for his part, well, his MO during combat is to always stand well back from action and shoot from a distance, so Ember ended up drawing all of the enemy attention, and of course she's a weak, squishy druid, so she was taking a lot of damage. As soon as Gorn returned, well, he did his best to rectify things. He did die in the process himself, was saved by his death ward, and in the end we scraped through that combat by the skin of our teeth, having exhausted almost all of our spells, and with Ember and Gorn on single-digit HP. After this, we short rested to regain some hit points, and Gorn took the opportunity to talk to his god directly and ask him about the best course of action. The results from this conversation were kind of mixed, and he didn't get any clear direction, but this did lead to some of the best role-playing that the group has actually done to this point, with Ember commenting on how rare it is that she sees someone able to talk directly with their god like I just did, and Gorn reminded her that while she is herself a cleric, in fact, all 3 of us in the party that day were clerics. We're all down here basically doing the bidding of various gods. We're all pawns in their celestial games. Some of us just have more control over that than others. At which point Ember commented that her relationship with Helm, the god that she worships, is very strained and not really a good one, and Faustus just kind of shrugged off the idea that his god held any sway over him whatsoever. To hear him talking about it, he's actually doing his god a favor by following him. Ember then takes the opportunity to properly thank Gorn for bringing back Lantix, and Gorn confesses that he was really just testing his abilities to see if he could do it, because he actually has in mind another person that he wants to bring back from the dead. It will be expensive, he says, 25,000 gold pieces worth of diamonds, but it will be worth it. Is that someone you? Ember asks. Do you want to bring yourself back from the dead? And Gorn says no. His time was given to him by his god. His life is not his to play with. It's someone else he wants to bring back. No time to rest, however, as shortly after this we then heard someone approaching the room that we were in. So we hid away, only to see two strange masked creatures that we realised with some high-level rolls were actually kind of giant balls of animated insects, and they were dragging one of those Nothics that we'd seen after them. We followed them at a distance, and we ended up in this absolutely gigantic room. Gorn sent his familiar Bolin out and was able to chart the room quite well thanks to some good stealth rolls. It seems that the Nothic was actually dragged up this dais here and through this door. However, the room was filled with lots of Nothics and, according to Faustus, who has true sight, will-o-wisps who were invisible. So we decided not to tackle that just yet. Presumably, however, this door leads to the mistress that we keep hearing about, perhaps that strange tentacle tablet that we've seen. Who knows? We'll figure that out later. Something connected to the Shadow Dusk family, for sure. For now, though, we decided to no powder there, and we went through this door instead, ending up at the top of a stairwell, face to face with another statue. And that's where the latest session ends, just in time to get Auric back fully healed, and then perhaps we can decide what to do next. Overall, it's been a very fun few sessions. As previously mentioned, the last few floors have kind of flown by, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up finishing this one in the next session. Still, we did almost TPK, so it is nice to see that the game can still be challenging, even at this absurdly high level that we've now collectively reached. We're basically gods at this point. Bring on the Mad Mage, I say. We are ready.